Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to our first ever, the first ever midday meeting for SMPTE Toronto. Know many of you may be gathering in boardrooms or eating your lunch. Hope you're comfortable, and I'm confident you will enjoy this session. So I'll get through the updates very quickly. I want to get to Niels's presentation and the discussion with Jerry. So, trivia question quickly. Who was the only Danish player to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs? And the prize is a drink at our social meetup that we're planning, and you'll hear more about that in a second. Thank you to our gold sponsors, Applied Electronics and Tag Video Systems. Our social media meetup we're having, and an email distribution will go out this afternoon and on Monday, but we're having a social meetup. The location is Grace O'Malley's at 14 Duncan Street, the King and John area. Monday starts at 5. Stop in anytime between 5 and 8 p.m. Seating and standing space, very simple. Just every person looks after payment of their own food and drink. Everyone is welcome. You don't need to be a SMPTE member to attend. There's no registration. And as I said, and there'll also be a free drink for anyone attending this meeting, and that is also at the social meetup. So look forward to seeing you all there. Should be fun. And you also don't need to be a member to be on our email distribution list. So we're setting up a number of ways to add yourselves to our email distribution list, but you can email me or phone me with that request anytime at the contact information here. This is my first meeting as chair of the SMPTE Toronto, so I want to say a quick thank you. I'm looking forward to serving all of you in this role. And we are working on an improved and expanded social media presence. More to follow on that. Certainly, we'd love you to become a member or become a friend, and some QR codes here for that. So our meeting this evening, pardon me, this this afternoon, today, as you know, is on HTML graphics. So on the EBU OGraf initiative, and we're very lucky to have Niels Borg, the chair of that group, EBU group, and also a key person at TV2 Denmark, presenting for us today. Questions and comments encouraged, and you can post the questions in the Q&A section. And the recording of the meeting will be available on the SMPTE Toronto YouTube channel. So as I said, Niels Borg presenting, EBU chair, the HTML graphics group, and leading the OGraf initiative, and key person at TV2 Denmark. Jerry Bellick, who I'm pretty sure all of you know, but Jerry Bellick with Chorus Entertainment Global News, National Director, Operations and Technology. Velkomst and welcome. Niels, I hope I'm saying that close to correctly. So very quickly, ways that Canada and Denmark are like: cold weather and warm people, humility, love of outdoor lifestyles. Notable Canadians of Danish origin include actor Leslie Nielsen, Olympic rower Scott Franzen, singer-songwriter Valdi, and programmer Rasmus Lerdorf, who was the co-author of the PHP scripting language. Now, Niels and Jerry taught me about this yesterday. I had no idea this had happened, but Canada and Denmark fought the politest 50-year war in history. Very polite. It was regarding a barren, uninhabited island near Greenland. It was called the Whiskey War because each country's military would leave bottles of liquor to claim the territory. So Canadian military would leave bottles of whiskey, Canadian whiskey, and the Danish military would leave bottles of Danish schnapps. So it was very friendly, and it was resolved after 50 years in 2022 by just splitting it down the middle. So we share a land border with Denmark. Again, I had no idea. This is the island, very small, very barren. We won't be using our half to grow wheat, but interesting story. So Niels has been part of the broadcast industry since 1998 with a strong focus on broadcast graphics and automation systems. Over the years, he's held a variety of roles from technical director to product manager and head of graphics department Always working at the intersection of creativity and technology, Niels has contributed to the industry through positions at Pinnacle Systems, Avid, Ross Video, TV Midvest, and TV2 Denmark, bringing hands-on experience and deep domain knowledge to every project. And just fresh out of IBC, Niels was a recipient of 2 awards at the IBC Accelerator Awards involving HTML graphics and his work. So again, we're lucky to have Niels here. Jerry, as I said, most of you know him, but Jerry's currently serving on the Global News senior leadership team. He's a live television professional specializing in workflows, content delivery, and leading teams through change from the edit suite to the executive suite, the control room to the boardroom. Jerry has a diverse production background that spans broadcast production, broadcast systems manufacturing and support, and broadcast equipment sales. He represented Global News in 2017 in New York as they received the first ever Edward R. Murrow Award for Technical Innovation. He also represented Global News with the 2009 NAB Award for Excellence. Excellence in Studio Technology, for the Global News distributed broadcast model. He was also a roadie for the Grateful Dead, but he doesn't remember much about it. With that, Niels, I will stop sharing. Welcome again, Niels. Again, we're very grateful to have you. Look forward to your presentation.
I'm going to talk about OGraf, as I said, and I've put together a few slides here before I actually enter into a proper demo, so you can see that it's not just something on paper, it's actually something that works. Now, I want to just bring you in on what are the problems and challenges we face today, the way we believe we can solve it. I can see that Salam Catalip has raised a hand. Good. So let me just quickly jump into what are the problems, because what I face as the biggest problem today is, in fact, that all our dear vendors are creating end-to-end solutions for us, which means that you either take all or nothing, which is, as far as I'm concerned, a very big challenge, because you might have designers at the facility that wants to use Adobe After Effects or any other graphics design tool. But they do have to use the design tool that comes with the rendering device as well. And that's a big challenge for us. And the same applies to the formats, because we must bring content into these solutions and then use their proprietary formats throughout the entire workflow. And basically, you have no choice when it comes to end device rendering. That is my blue ocean, if you will. I would love to see that we could provide our viewers with the ability to choose where the graphics are positioned and what graphics to show and not show. I don't personally believe that we will sit there and choose all our graphics, but I think visually impaired would love to have the ability to scale graphics, for instance, or position them outside the active video area. So that's some of the features that I would love to see in a future solution. The challenge we have with introducing a new standard or specification is, of course, that there are tons of graphics standards and file formats out there, and this should not just add another one to that list, and then we'll keep the list rolling for over the next years with additional standards. So our fingers crossed, this will be a format that we all will utilize. And so far, with the interest that we have seen from both customers in the industry and from vendors, I think we have a chance of achieving something with this new specification. What we have tried to do is to put together a little video here where we try to explain the vision. And bear in mind that this is just the vision, so I'll come into more details when I go through the demo. And this little video here will show it as a strict HTML workflow, which it can be. And from my point of view, I think HTML has something to offer to us as broadcasters that is worth considering, because it is something that allows us to be cross-platform. It is something that is relatively easy to develop. It's something that's quite easy to output as well. And it gives us some financial freedom as well. So let me just roll the video, and then I'll go back into the details afterwards.
A modular approach to broadcast graphics enhances workflow efficiency by allowing independent development and optimization of each component. This flexibility ensures the integration of best-of-breed solutions for tasks like rendering and animation. It also supports seamless cross-platform publishing, as modules can be designed to be platform-agnostic, ensuring compatibility with various broadcasting environments, including TV, online streaming, and mobile platforms. This adaptability is crucial in today's diverse media landscape, enabling content accessibility across multiple devices and formats. Overall, modular systems provide a future-proof, scalable solution that keeps up with technological advancements. Using a generic HTML standard for broadcast graphics allows seamless integration with tools like Adobe After Effects, Lupic, and Visual Studio Code. This ensures flexibility, enhances productivity, and maintains consistency across platforms, making the production process more efficient and future-proof. A plugin within the editing software shows available templates. After data entry, the graphic is pulled on top of the timeline. When the clip is finalized, the graphics elements are transferred to the NRCS as metadata, and a clean feed version of the clip is sent to the video server. In the NRCS, the same plugin as shown in the editing software is available in order to add additional graphics. All graphics elements are transferred to the studio automation or discrete applications like SPX or Rezos, which sends instructions to the web server. During events, custom-developed user interfaces can also be used to control the graphics, thanks to the generic API. The graphics can, in the future, be rendered directly on the viewing device.
So the point is here that we want to have an end-to-end workflow, obviously, because we all need that, but we need it to be split into modules. And one of the ways we could achieve that is exactly by having this new specification, where we want to provide all that wants to adopt this with a set of tools that makes it easy to adopt it. So we have, of course, described the workflow. We have detailed documentation on the specification with clear instructions, so it's quite easy to go to come on board with this new architecture. And then we have, of course, samples, so you can see how do we build a lower third, how do we build a table graphic, etc., etc. And then what we are most proud of is that we already have endorsements from a number of vendors and broadcasters. So that's what we are quite pleased with. I'll come back to where you can find all these details later in the presentation. But as I said, the key thing here is the modularity, because if you think of who works with graphics in your facility, I'm quite certain that most of them work in the Adobe platform. And that's where they feel confident. That's what they want to use for making their design. And preferably, they want to stay within that environment. When they use other tools than the Adobe platform or similar design tools, it's a steep learning curve, and it's something that will, in some way, compromise that creative freedom. And with this, we want to maintain their way of working within these design tools that they use, and then simply being able to export it to other platforms, which, of course, we as technicians or whatever role we play within the organization, we want to be able to choose freely as well. So with this architecture, we believe that we have something where you can do creation where you want to, and you can do playback where you want to. This little drawing here just exemplifies what we presented at IBC this year, where you have on the left, you have your creation and design, and then you have on the left, you have samples of what could play back these graphics already today. What we demoed at IBC was the complete workflow from After Effects via Stream Shapers to LiveOS and SPX, and that's what you're going to see for real in a moment. We also used Lupic, which is a web-based design tool similar to what you will see in commercial products like Chiron or Ross or Visati. But of course, you can also write your code. So you could sit and handwrite or use AI agents to create your OGrafs. And then finally, we're quite pleased that vendors, graphics vendors for on-air graphics have already shown a significant interest in the product. But at this point, let me skip out of the demo and jump over to After Effects. Because what you have here is a completely standard After Effects project. And you'll see here that this is just a simple lower third. On the timeline that you see here in the bottom, you can see there is a marker for start and a marker for stop. Those are the two forces that this graphic will use during playback. So the designer can do the entire workflow here in After Effects, and when they do the export, it will be with these markers and these stop points that you have designed. The same applies if you wanted to do something like an election table. In this case, you can see here you have a proper election table, and this will, in fact, and I'll show you that in a moment, be linked to external data. So that real-time need that we all have during election or sports or whatever we might be doing is still available in spite that we've transitioned to an HTML workflow. It could also be something like this, where you have multiple stops. So you see here on this timeline, there are in fact 7 stops plus the end out animation. But let's say I was happy with these 3 graphics. They will be my package. What I do is I open that the plugin within After Effects called Body Moving. And in here, I've specified the settings and I've specified the location where these graphics should be exported to. So when I press the render button here, it will automatically publish these graphics in the format called Logi. And as soon as it's done, I will quickly jump over to the Finder window where you can see that there will appear. So here on my screen here, you'll see that there are 3 JSON files, which are the Logi files. So, and Logi has been around for quite some time. But that is not a format that flows nicely into something like SPX or Casper CD or other tools. So what we do is we bring those into another tool called Stream Shaper's Ferryman. And this is just an interim solution, because what we're looking at is, of course, to have a plugin directly out of After Effects. But in the interim, you could use this as a way to do it. So here we have the same graphics as I just showed you before. And what I'll do is I'll take that lower third graphic that I had before. And now you can see this is how this graphic would animate. You can see the stop points here on the timeline here. What I'm going to do is I'll quickly stop it here and place it where we see it, because over here on the left, not only do you have information about this Logi file, but you also have what fonts it includes. You have the text layers, because I don't know if you noticed, I'll quickly jump back to After Effects here. But over here, we have specified 2 text fields, the name field and the title field. And they are also mentioned here as profession and party, name field here. So these 2 fields are the 2 fields I have available here, plus there are some extras which we could utilize. There's also a color feature here in this particular graphic that we could manipulate if you wanted to change something. We can even expose that when you get to the next step of the workflow. So let's say that we are happy with this graphic. We just want it as an OGraf. Then it's a matter of pressing this button, pressing the OGraf option here on the 3 file formats. And if you want to, you can specify additional metadata that will be included into the OGraf graphic. Because one of the things I want to emphasize is that it does actually have version support. There are also the ability to do vendor-specific functionality, which I'll come back to when I talk about the specification in more detail. But if we wanted the vendors to pick up this format, of course, we should be able to provide them with some competitive edge. And the specification also supports that. But let's say we're happy. So we'll just press the download file. And what happens now is that I've exported a zip file. And let's jump back to Finder here, because what you'll see in my downloads folder is, in fact, that I have here a Blue Book file. And that I have already done this like classical TV kitchen. I've already prepared it. So I've extracted it here. And that contains the manifest file where we do all the specification, the graphics file in MGIS format, and all the assets that's needed to create this graphic. So this is the export process. So let's go into a tool where we could utilize this. And this could, at this point, I can prove, I can show in SPX, which is a Finnish company that has done a complete HTML workflow for playback, and that also ties in within RCS systems, etc. But in here, in order to use this template, I'll simply go in here and I will press the import button. And in here, I will select the Blue Book graphic, and it's now imported. It's that simple. So now it's available within the system. And let's go into the rundown here. And in here, simply press the plus button and say, I would like to use this Blue Book graphic that we had. And when I press the spacebar here, you'll see that the law thread comes on. What's more interesting is something like, for instance, the pie chart that I showed you before, because this is the step graphic with multiple steps here. And what I'm going to do is I'll quickly bring up, because this one is tied to a spreadsheet. So all the data that you see in this is linked directly with the spreadsheet that you see here on the screen. And what I'm just going to do is, just to prove that it is live, is I'm going to change the color of the first bar in the pie chart here. So it is really live. So you can see now it turns purple instead of blue. We could also say that this was, they had 75 seats instead. And then it will, of course, update momentarily with this data. So it is proper live that you can do. So you can create your election graphics, your sports graphics, etc. with this. Now, this was just one workflow. What I'm going to show you now is we're starting in a different location. So this time I'm using Lupic, which, as I mentioned, is an online design tool. And in here, same thing, you have a graphic that you have designed within this application. And when you're happy with that one, you have the ability to do exports. Let's see why it disappeared here. My tools just disappeared, so bear with me a second. So here, over here, in the right side of the screen, I can choose which format I would like to export. And in here, I have the ability to choose OGraf as a native export format. And this one also allows me to do tons of links between fields within the graphic with external data before I export out of Lupic. So this is just another way to create graphics. What I'm going to show you as well is the tool called LiveOS, which is an alternative way to do playback. So this is actually a cloud-based production tool. And in here, you'll see that I have two playlists. I have a playlist here on the left and a playlist on the right. And let me just cut to this window. So right now, we have two outputs here. So we have channel 1 with the football field, and we have this anchor here on the right side. So on the right side, I will just bring up this graphic, which again is linked to external data. And then on the right side, on the left side, I'll put up the step graphic. And again, it's the exact same graphic I've used for this as I exported out of After Effects and brought into SPX. Now, jumping back to the presentation here, this is the architecture, the anatomy of an OGraf graphic. So you have a manifest file, and in that you specify all the parameters that's relevant about this graphic. And then you can basically have any type of dependencies, any type of graphic that you want to link with this, as long as you use a JavaScript as your point of your main point. So you can do all the live animations you want to do. You can link to any image or clip or vector-based graphic in this. And one of the cool things is also that you have the ability to build information about how the UI of a graphic, or what fields that you want to expose into the graphic, so that's exposed. So you have self-exposing UIs as part of your control interfaces. What we've also thought a bit about is, of course, how do we do step graphics with this? And of course, you can do a send and forget within this architecture, but you could also do multi-steps. So here is a single step, or it could be a multiple step, as you saw on the pie chart. Or we could do steps in random order. So there's also the ability to play a graphic in and do transition logic, do transitions. So go back and forth in within the graphic itself. And of course, as I mentioned before, you can have custom actions that allows you to expose fields and parameters within the control UI that you have in your workflow. And then, as I mentioned, also the ability for vendors to do something that's specific to them, because I think it's a key thing that they have the ability to do what they require to still be competitive in a commercial market. If you want to know more about this, and I trust you would love to, ograf.ebu.io is the location where you find all the information that's required for this specification. And you'll also find links to samples and to all the bits and pieces that's relevant in order to get started with OGraf. I mean, I'm quite proud about showing who's behind this, because of course we were a number of people that started this. BBC and us from TV2 Denmark were the ones taking the initiative, and then we brought Deutsche Welle from Germany, ITN from the UK, and NRK from Norway, SVT from Sweden, TV2 Norway, and Wiley from Finland into the mix. And then fortunately, we also had some commercial partners, Net On and Volant Media and Superfly, SPX and Lupic, and then of course Adobe, which we all know is pretty much the industry standard. So with that was my presentation of what OGraf is, and I will stop sharing. If I can get that to work, bear with me.
All right. Thankfully, I can hear audio again. And Jerry, Jerry, welcome, and thanks for turning the camera on. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And I won't say much in this segment. I'll turn it over to you two. You two have known each other for quite a while.
Yeah.
But Jerry has been talking about the benefits of HTML graphics to me, and teaching me for a long time. So I appreciate that. But Jerry, just go ahead. Any comments or questions or anything to share?
Well, first of all, you see so much innovation coming out of TV2 Denmark, and it's important to know. And I mean this whenever you think of innovation, when you see something new and interesting, and it's coming out of Denmark, it's Niels Borg, by the way, behind it almost all the time. And I realize you got a team working with you as well, but Niels and I go back as far as Pinnacle Systems, and we work together there. And that, it is an interesting time then too, because there's this transition from hardware, big refrigerator size character generators, to kind of dedicated PC hardware with target boards and output cards, and then it's transformed again into GPU based PCs and consumer off the shelf hardware, and now here we are once again at this crazy transition into HTML. And at Global News, our morning show, all of our OTT stuff, it's been HTML5 based now since I think about 2019, 2020. And once you've been in that environment, you can't go back. It's remarkable how sophisticated it can be. It's remarkable how easy it can be. But it's also so encouraging to see that as we're moving into this next platform, Niels, that you see such an opportunity for a standard to move those JSON files between point to point to point, especially on the front end where it needs to be rendered. I mean, wouldn't it be great to be able to render that graphic on your phone, on your TV set, on your watch, right? And all this stuff's going to be possible now if we all stick to some kind of standard. So, you know, first of all, congratulations and thank you for pushing this forward. What's driving this now? Like, why is HTML5? Why is it the next generation? What's the
Well, first of all, I want to go back to our legacy days where we talked about, I mean, we had this transition from discrete hardware that could just do it and then to the Windows platform. And one of the battles we had back in the Pinnacle days was exactly, are you going to put a Windows computer into my production? I beg your pardon. There was a reluctance to do that, and now it's standard, right? Now we're at the next step, and we, like you, have been on air with HTML graphics for at least the last 5 years. As far as I'm concerned, there are multiple drivers. One of them is that cost per eyeball must go down. So production must be cheaper because we know that the amount of media being produced nowadays is just exponential. So we can't expect the same revenue stream from each individual piece we make, and which means we must make the production cheaper. And I mean, HTML is available. It can animate. It can do all the stuff that you need in an ordinary, at least in an overlay graphic scenario, and also for full screens and wall graphics. As far as Denmark concerns, at least, I know we are a bit boring when it comes to graphics. We are quite flat. But we also want to make sure that we have a brand consistency across all our platforms. So it's also a matter of having something that looks alike on our website, on our streaming platform, and in our linear production. And as Pierre points out, it's not all After Effects content that is transferable into HTML5. But if I look at what we do here in Denmark, we don't have any challenges with that because it is a flat 2D look we have. So it's not an issue, I have to point out. And I mean, we have the SPX guys that I demoed before. They did a survey, and they have a statistic on how much they believe that can be done with HTML, and they claim in 96.8% of all graphics that we do in broadcast can be done using HTML. Of course, we cannot do AR and VR graphics with this if we want a full 3D feeling look and feel. However, we when we started this process, and we did start the journey from VisRT to After Effects and then onwards to HTML. And when we offered the artist to work solely in After Effects, we made a workflow where they could export clips with a sidecar marker file out of After Effects. And as part of that workflow, we could either put it in the wall, or we could feed it through an Unreal Engine and still have the feeling of an AR environment. So, and now we are at HTML because it's just simple and it's cheap and it does exactly what we need at the moment. But we need a way to have something that makes us free in terms of what platform we export to, and that's why we needed OGraf.
And not only to that point too, I think it's really important to understand that the production platforms are changing so very quickly. You know, we dedicated hardware, and you know, at Global we're big fans of vMix. We use that in so many different things. It's like the Swiss Army knife of production tools. You know, vMix does some amazing things, but that's also an application gets installed on a PC. Same thing with OBS. But now we're seeing some really sophisticated tools coming out of, like, you know, with like Q's is one good example out of Belgium. Next Edition, which is something I've really been exploring lately, completely HTML5 based, I think. And of course, you know, we're seeing production platforms from traditional broadcast manufacturers like Grass Valley and the AMP ecosystem. And these are platforms that aren't going to support your grandfather's CG. We need to have these kinds of presentation tools inside of these platforms. And more importantly, they have to be as sophisticated, if not more sophisticated, than the tools we're using now. And the database integration and your presentation there with election data, we did 11 elections this year. And the same HTML graphic platform powered touchscreens and display screens. For the most part, our last elections at Global Television, I would suggest that the smallest component of our display was probably a traditional CG. Everything else was HTML or touchscreen or running on a Dell NUC and master control.
I mean, at TV2, we have used a lot of Casper CGs, and I trust that that's also being used quite significantly in Canada. And we believe that that's the interim step until you just literally just send a URL to your digital or virtual vision mixer. Because why do you need a rendering device in the future? Because if everything's happening in the cloud, I mean, you can't have hardware anyway. So, and HTML also answers that. So I think we are onto something here that also talks into the future.
I want to talk also about the audience. You raised up this interesting about cost per eyeball. And in Canada, we like to think we live in this English and French bubble, but really we're very multicultural here in Canada. And it's safe to say that you can't kind of stay in your lane anymore with respects to programming. You've got to be able to version your programming in multiple languages.
Exactly.
How do you think the OGraf standard is going to help us there?
I think it's quite obvious because you can have graphic with multiple versions within it, and all of a sudden you can push the same content but with multiple different text on it. That's definitely also possible, and since it costs nothing, what's the problem, right? I mean, I'm not too concerned about multi-language, and what I really appreciate is that this is multi-aspect. I think that's a bigger win as far as I'm concerned. That regardless of whether I'm on my 9:16 or 16:9 phone, or on the TV set at home or on my tablet, the graphics will adapt, and they'll adapt to the content. I don't know if you noticed, but one of the things I mentioned in the video was the ability to do editing and bring the metadata into the NRCS. I think that's another key part of this workflow, that you don't burn your graphics as part of your rendering, but during your editing process, that's the only place in the workflow where you actually know the right timing for a lower third. But why should I break my archive by having all these dirty feeds? It's waste of space because I would need to render twice. I don't want that. I want to push all the metadata back to the NRCS, because that also gives me another advantage, which is if I go breaking, or if I do a night show with the same package, or if I do a morning show with the same package, I can tailor the look and feel.
That's a big problem we're having right now at Global, because we are going more server based and we're burning our keys in, we're burning our graphics in, and you're right, now you've got a versioning problem. You don't have a control room problem anymore, but you've got a versioning problem when that content changes, and it does. And let's face it, we're not really presenting on a 16:9 aspect ratio as much anymore. We are reaching people on their phones. We are presenting to people in a portrait format too. So it's great to be able to actually present that JSON manifest on the outbound and just change it at will. That's really cool. What does this mean for protocols like MOS? Because right now, the media object server protocol really does take the idea is coordination of a newsroom computer system and multiple platforms. When everything becomes one platform, do you see the role of that newsroom computer system changing? And do you see MOS changing now that we're kind of moving from dedicated hardware to automated hardware to now maybe one singular kind of platform?
I do believe that we will need MOS for quite some time still, and I don't see how OGraf necessarily does have to impact that, because talking about the editing workflow again, I mean, that would be a MOS object that do transfer back to the NRCS. I see a lot of pros and cons with MOS. I see all the cross-device functionality, which I love. But as a former TD, I must say that I'm also overly annoyed by having to open a plugin whenever I have to do changes. I mean, if you have a lower third with a typo and you have to open a plugin, correct the typo, press the save button, close the plugin, and then refresh your rundown. I mean, that package is long played and gone. So I mean, I could definitely see that reverting back to something that was more text-based when it comes to something like lower thirds would be beneficial. But I can't see how we can live without Moz, at least for quite some time, until we get to the point where we have complete integrated systems. But one of the challenges that I also touched on was modularity. And if you don't want to put all eggs in one basket, you do need protocols that allow you to interconnect multiple devices.
Mhm.
And right now, Moz is probably the best bet on that one.
Yeah, we touched on this yesterday in our sort of preliminary chat, and you know, I think we're both very graphic centric, and I always, you know, always, you know, a brand, you know, it's everything's video, the brand is in front. You know, why are the graphics so important? Because we always put them in front of the video. I know it's kind of silly. We can't put them behind the video, but branding your channel, just presenting information, live information. I mean, graphics is such an important part of what we do in any platform these days. Explain the role of these new formats coming into, because you know we were all kind of born and raised on Targas, then QuickTimes, and you know 32 bits with video and key and alpha, and now we're looking at these you know Lottie files, WebM, which also carries alpha, which is really kind of cool.
Right.
You know, these tools are so light and they're so small, and the payload on, you know, presenting your graphic from place to place to place, moving them around, it's amazingly small now. But
Yeah.
do we need to kind of come to a better terms with the Lotties and the WebMs? They seem to be still a little on the fringes of
I think it's part of the bigger transition that we're going through as an industry, where we had a lot of configuration specialists and technicians and lab coats and stuff like that. I think what we're seeing now is that we'll have a lot more developers on staff that will be able to transition the way we do stuff. I mean, we talked about yesterday also that we don't buy all the expensive kit anymore. We all buy Blackmagic design converters. We all do all sorts to reduce costs.
Mhm.
And I think this is part of that transition as well, that not only do you have in-house development in many places, but you also go towards something that is cheaper, both to achieve and to maintain. And frankly, if you go out on the street in Ottawa or in Calgary and ask for an HTML developer, you'll get a handful right away, right? And so, of course, all of a sudden you get resources on board that understands a different way of doing things, and coding is just their second language. And if we have a design tool like After Effects or similar, you can have something for the designers where they can actually get a WYSIWYG experience, and they just need a transfer format. And Lottie and OGraf could be that transform format. It could be the SVG of HTML graphics.
Yeah.
And frankly, to be honest with you, if the vendors went to the point where they say, okay, you can work in your design tool, whatever that may be, you export an OGraf, and we'll import that into our proprietary world. That would also be a gain, because all of a sudden you're still broken the chain, so the designers can work in whatever tool they want to.
Yeah, no, and that chain from and actually our art director at Global Television, Leo Kavanaugh, will argue that Illustrator is his tool. That's his wheelhouse. And when you see somebody who's talented in an Illustrator like Leo and some of his team, some of our team members are, that's such a, you know, you're vector based, you're resolution independent. It can be, and it's just plug and play into these new tools. It's really, really cool.
So I think what we have here is something that will allow us to do stuff. Am I still sharing, by the way?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you are. And maybe there's an opportunity now to take some questions, Roy. I don't know if
Sorry, I'm sorry about that because that was not intentional. I was.
There's there's one open question from Matt Campbell. There's
Yeah.
Lottie export expressions in After Effects. How would a customer move text and objects down if, say, there were two names in the lines? How would they link, say, a locator to move with the end of the type? Oh, like a standard kind of grow with the size of the field, or that you've got an open-ended lower third, say, that has sort of a one name key, second name key, and a third. I can answer some of that, Matt. We are seeing some applications now that do that automatically. If the field is empty, don't render the field. If the field is empty, then apply, this move to it, move it center frame kind of thing. I don't know, Niels, what do you say to that?
I mean, creating lower thirds in the classical way that grows where the bar grows with the content is a no-brainer to do in After Effects. It's quite simple to do. So you would still design the entire graphic with all these parameters inside After Effects, and when you do the export in Lottie, it will actually work. We've done that numerous times during the process. And when we transfer it into OGraf, it'll also work. I think when it comes to transition logic, where you have behavior depending on other graphics, that's where you're a bit more challenged. That requires coding, and that is also the case if you use commercial products. I mean, you don't get transition logic freely.
I answered a question earlier from an anonymous attendee. How does it manage fonts that may be exclusive to your graphics PC? And I suggested that OpenType is really the way you go. I mean, you just pick from that family.
Well, there are different ways. I would definitely also recommend OpenType that or even better web standard types. But you can in fact include the glyphs within the Lottie format. And then when you add playback, it will actually use them. So you'll obviously use them in whatever size you have rendered them into the Lottie. But that does actually work. The caveat is, though, that it is slower to load a graphic where all the glyphs are included. But it does work.
If you could put on your TV2 hat for a second, because we talked about this briefly yesterday, you still have some traditional CGs in the mix.
We do.
But for the most part, your biggest tool in the toolbox right now, would you say it's Casper and this type of application? Where would you put a traditional CG these days at TV Denmark?
Right. I mean, right now we're in the transitioning away from our traditional CD. But we are using our sports channel has been Casper CG and HTML graphics for the last 5 years. Our wall graphics, that's all done in After Effects using an exporter where we export a piece of media with a sidecar with all the stops. And the overlays, the reason why we haven't transitioned yet is because we haven't found a way to do the NLE workflow.
Yeah.
And it's such a key component of our workflow that we want to have that clean feed. So that's the main reason. And then of course it's a matter of bandwidth. We only, like anyone else, we are also limited on development resources. So because obviously we will have to recreate a lot of stuff, which we haven't done yet.
Yeah. We were very fortunate at Global when we did rebrand a while ago. A lot of our rebrand was done in Illustrator. Some, of course, was done in After Effects, and it's having the stuff that was native. Actually, let me rephrase that. Our latest redesign for our morning show, completely Illustrator based. And just gives you that level of flexibility down to move
exactly.
You want,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I think if I should just comment on where it would be a reduction in functionality. There's probably more if you have a style like they have in the Middle East, where it's a lot of shimmer and glows and stuff like that. I can't picture that in a HTML world, but surely if I look at the Nordic way of doing graphics, which of course I admit that is very, very, we call it stylish.
Well, it is stylish, and we support that. Global News. We actually made sure our design, and a credit to our design team, that it was HTML5 friendly, cuts only from a transition standpoint, that you could go from anything to anything on a cut. And that's super important. Another anonymous attendee question, really talking about if your vision next year doesn't support HTML5, how do you run via like NDI? And I imagine that really depends on where your templates get rendered.
Right,
Do
exactly.
some of these rendering platforms support an NDI?
I mean, first of all, I mean, it would be relatively easy to use a Casper CG. That would be my first tool of choice. But of course, you can always, and in fact, we played a bit with that at IBC as well, where we had just a screen capture within any tool, right? And then we used and then it was NDI from there. Because bear in mind, the only thing you need is a renderer, and that is your web browser of some sort, right? So it's definitely quite easy to convert into NDI, and if you wanted to go with Casper and you use SDI elsewhere in your facility, I mean, placing a converter on the back of the Casper CG would be an easy way to do it as well, right? BirdDog does some quite nice ones.
Yeah, we had some, I think they're from Viz, ex-Newtek type stuff for conversion of.
They have some as well.
SDI to NDI,
sure.
Yeah. We have an anonymous attendee. How do you build a graphic in After Effects that has multiple transitions? Is it possible? Pre-comps, not the After Effects wizard that I should be. I have very talented people that do that on my behalf.
Right. I haven't tested that with the pre-comps. I would need to test it. I can come back with an answer later, but at this point, I do honestly don't not know how that would behave. Let me just quickly check if there were any pre-comps in any of the graphics I had. I don't believe there was. No, they were all, but it's surely something I can look into.
While you dig around for that, it's just and using our election, because you just popped up your election graphic again. Just when your elections are complicated, elections are, they're especially in Canada, right? When you're doing a federal election like we have just finished a little while ago, and you're distributing your graphics amongst multiple places, and let me tell you, instead of like pushing entire directories to CGs and to making sure that everything's in the right place and all the assets can find themselves into the right box, just being able to drop a JSON file on a computer somewhere to render in Chrome, it's just a game changer for making changes, or sometimes not even sending the JSON, just making a simple simple change to a text string in there. It's remarkably efficient, and the opportunity to scale this and make these things into touchscreens and that type of stuff. We've been very big on the touchscreens here at Global, and it still continues to be a focus for us as a great storytelling tool and an HTML.
It is, and we have a regional election this November, and our anchor has asked for a 100-inch touchscreen, which where we'll use OGraf. So he will have a map of Denmark, and then he can simply click on whatever region he wants to expose and tell not only explain the result, but also have various stories from that region. And we work with the guys from Finland, SPX, and I saw a demo that one of the guys there had done for the show, and he claimed he'd done the French election in 2 days, and it looked fabulous. I mean, so it's surely something that's here to stay.
Well,
two questions. Actually, three now. Hey, let's start with who got in there.
And a couple in the chat as well here.
Robert, his audio is not working, but what's the strategy for NRCS previews? With respects to that, that's a very good question. With respect,
it is. I mean, that's something where I would leave that to whoever implements the OGraf specification. It's certainly doable, and I know that the SPX guys who has just developed a bus plugin for the NRCS, then they will of course implement some sort of animation. One thing I should add is, and I didn't mention that before, is that the specification is made for both real-time and non-real-time graphics.
Yeah.
So there is actually a parameter that allows you to use this graphic in a rendering an NLE environment, and it will know that it has the behavior for that.
That's really important, especially when you're looking at that middle keyframe, because you're
Exactly.
seeing
But
you're in
I
and
think
you're out, right?
I think it's key to say that it's up to the vendors or the developers how they want to do the plugins and all that stuff. That's not part of the specification.
Yeah.
There will be I mean, we've just released the first version of the specification, and by the end of the year, we will have a specification for an API as well, so that you can use that as well.
Our anonymous attendee has another question in the, and I'll read this from the Q&A. You said you noticed sort of a jump when you changed the votes in your CSV for parliamentary chart or graphic earlier. Is there a way to make that graphic smooth, to make that smoother? Yes, your question does make sense. You know, one of the interesting things about HTML5 graphics, and I'll answer this first, is that because you're not really staging a graphic on a preview with your data, then taking it to program, it's just always updating, right? And yeah,
yeah, but you can. I mean, I would like to elaborate a little bit on this, because I don't know how it is in Canada, but surely the anchor will go on air in a segment and talk about an election result, and he has probably prepared a story prior to go into that segment.
Yeah.
So if the data changes after it's been called, that can kind of break his story. So therefore, he might be reluctant to update graphics while they're on air, because all of a sudden you miss your story. On the other hand, it is in fact possible to do animations on changes, because of course you can set up rules that say, okay, when data change, you should run this animation. So it doesn't have to jump, but it can of course jump.
I will say that our touchscreen graphics, because they're all real time, especially during an election, you can't get our presenter to let go of this segment, because it's always changing and he's always touching and it just doesn't stop. So it can be annoying as well. But yeah, you just you wind them up and let them.
But I mean, the answer is yes to all of the above, right? I mean,
and guys, one Pierre Hugh shared a comment in the chat regarding pre-comps, said there's a setting in body moving to include pre-comps.
Right. Yeah. I just don't want to commit to something I haven't tried myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
which is why I can't recommend weed.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Because I haven't.
Data source integration, Matt Campbell. Yeah, it's nice to it's they're from everywhere. We've got a pretty good bucket for all of our data at Global. What are you doing, Niels, at TV Denmark?
Oh, we do a variety of things. We of course do CSV files. We have an election system, because the Danish election rules are so complicated. We have a dedicated election system where we have of course, it exposes API, has an API that allows you to access the data. And that also means that we can do all sorts of heat maps and charts of all sorts. I mean, for this coming election, we're also going to do what we call a coalition builder, so that the anchor can show who will actually gain the chair. If we make a coalition with these and these parties. Bear in mind, we have 16 parties in most of in Denmark, so it's a proper democracy. There's something with the interests for everyone, right? And I'm not going to do anything more about politics. This was the only thing.
Believe it or not, our political national political scene got simpler, but also more complicated. Minority government, and it really was. It's so much easier working through your election challenges in data and having it presented, as opposed to trying to make it building the graphic and then trying to figure out how you're going to automate it.
Right.
It's so much easier starting from the data side and looking at the data and then realizing how the graphic's going to look.
But surely, I mean, any type of linkage with data is, of course, mandatory. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything.
Yeah.
So, and I can tell you, I mean, for this year's Tour de France, we did all sorts of links as well. So we could show the distance between the lead and the peloton. We could show speeds and expected reach of the goal. Sorry, of the finish line. So, I mean, we are very much data driven in our graphics here.
Well, you have to be, because no one's going to be typing it in.
No, exactly. Precisely.
One more question there in the Brian Reed. Did we answer your question? Has Adobe rolled this tool to all their applications? Do you mean the exporting?
Is that Lottie you refer to? I don't believe Lottie is exposed everywhere. And as I mentioned during the presentation, as far as I'm concerned, the 2 steps I did with Lottie and then into Stream Shapers, that's an interim solution. Because what we are aiming at is, in fact, to have a native export of OGraf from within After Effects and the other Adobe products. And there is a significant interest within Adobe for this, because this HTML graphics workflow is not only interesting for us broadcasters. I think if we are really, and when we skip all our beliefs about ourselves, we are very small in the terms of the market that Adobe covers. So they are looking much more into independent media providers and influencers, and they do tons of video. And if they could export something as simple as an OGraf, and the influencers and independent video creators could use it, that would be a great win for them as well.
So, by the way, I did put a link to Lottie in the chat there for those who are curious about Lottie. It's pretty cool. It does some very, very interesting things as far as vector-based animations and being able to import those into your, being able to create Lotties or import Lotties into your composites. It's very handy.
I've just copied the website for OGraf into the chat as well, so you can find it there and go straight to it.
Yeah.
There you can also connect and be part of the people following us. So feel free to do that as well, of course.
Okay. We get a couple more questions pop in there.
What are the key considerations for using graphic hierarchy or position to create context-aware transitions? Oh, that's very good. We're looking for ways to automatically manage screen real estate, such as having one graphics appearance trigger others to move. Yeah, that's a great question. Is there anything in the spec for that, or is that reliant on?
No, I mean, the cool thing is, in fact, that doesn't have to be part of the specs, because that's lower down in the hierarchy. Yeah. So when you program, I mean, we support both iframes and other architectures. I've just forgotten I can just check it up here, because we support both. It's basically up to you what you put into the HTML, the HTML sources that you use. So lower down in your hierarchy, you can do transition logic and stuff like what you just described here, where we have one thing triggering another. Yeah. It's merely a question about how you program. But I would say then we're beyond what's WYSIWYG. This is where you have to write code.
Yeah. No, we products like Maximize, MXMZ, they've got some really, really good tools internally for transition logic and for smart templates that do all the right things based on the content. That's a pretty interesting product, actually.
Yeah.
And Pierre Hugh with another question: do we have a timeline from Adobe? Also, how will they manage effects that do not translate to HTML5?
I mean, it is like any other export. You cut it, as we say in Denmark, based on one of the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales. You cut a toe and a heel here and there when you do an export, and that's of course also applicable here. So first of all, I mean, there will be features you cannot use within After Effects that will be ignored when you do the export. And that's just the way it is. And I don't anticipate that we'll have a fully featured export functionality. Also, getting a timeline from Adobe is quite hard. I don't, even though I have asked for it, I get very vague answers, which is I fully understand and acknowledge. But we already have a workflow, so it's only a matter of improving the workflow as far as I'm concerned. Yes, it would be great to do OGraf export directly out of the product, but there is an interim solution until we get to that.
Yeah.
I know that the guys Stream Shapers, which I used for the conversion from Lottie to OGraf, they are seriously considering creating a plugin that I'll make available. That's a German team.
Yeah. Okay.
And in terms of adoption, I can already now let you know that Cutting Room, which is an easy editor, they will support this.
Oh,
they
nice.
have committed. They have committed to it.
That's a very interesting product, Cutting Room.
Yes.
Out of Bergen, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, I can highly recommend that you look at that. And there are a lot of these Norwegian companies that are taking us very seriously.
Yeah. Good. That's awesome. It's first of all, this is really sort of it feels like it's maturing. We've had HTML for a long time now, and now that we have tools inside the TV environment, the production environment that are supporting HTML, and it's not just the browser stuff. We're talking some pretty sophisticated things like when you look at the AMP platform as another example. So it's really good to see someone beating the drum for a standard, and somebody because it could really get away on us really quickly, and especially if something is so is so open but has some guardrails on it, where we can get to the point, and I think this is a really important part, where we can start rendering things at the end of the process in real time, and having turning newsroom content, instead of rendering it into bitmaps and graphics, just passing that information along to the end user and having it update in real time. I think that's just that's something we've talked about for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think everyone wants that. However, we also know that it's a super challenging task, because how do you handle timing? I want this lower third to come on at a specific frame within the video.
Yeah.
So you need to handle buffering throughout this pipeline as well, and that's of course a challenge. So I don't anticipate this will be flying for anyone in the very near future, but I'm sure everyone has a desire to do it. But as I also mentioned previously, I don't frankly believe that we will sit there and choose our own graphics. We can't be bothered. At least if we look at how the users of our website behave when we have sliders where you can say before and after and stuff like that, they're hardly being used because people can't be bothered. There's so much content that you don't sit there and do stuff like that. And the same, I think, would apply to graphics. Yes, you are a sports geek and you only want to follow a specific football player or a hockey player for you Canadians. You might do it, but on a day-to-day basis, I doubt that you will sit there and choose your graphics. But being able to adjust the look and feel of it by scaling it up so you as a visually impaired can see what we actually put on the screen. That is something I can see some benefit in, or place it outside the active video so that you can get this this fantastic program from the mountains and see the picture and not see text on top of it.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, guys, we those were great questions. Thank you, everyone. Really engaging. I think we could go to final comments at this point. So maybe Jerry first, just final comments, and then Niels.
Well, first of all, Niels, just a real pleasure to see you again, and a lot of great memories of working with Niels, at the IBCs and at the time when we were working on the Deco product line and all these production tools. it was an exciting time. We were really, it was the end of the Rust Belt with all the dedicated hardware and all the dedicated platforms that we were using up until then. It kind of feels like we're there again, you know, with at sort of at the edge of this next generation of a platform, and we're seeing it with things like cutting room, things like AMP, things
Right.
like this is the right thing at the right time, OGraf, because it's I like to think graphics are the most important part of every presentation, because that's just how I started my career in this business and how I'm probably going to finish it. But yeah, just great to see you at the forefront of this, because I can't think of anyone better to take it on. So thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say that I'm pleased that we're no longer at war.
Well,
because
you know what happened is that Denmark cut off our supply of Ozempic, and we had to capitulate. And cheese. They stopped all shipments of cheese.
Yeah, that's probably right. No, but that aside, I really think we're onto something here, and I think you're absolutely right that the transition from discrete hardware to Windows-based architectures, and now from discrete end-to-end solutions to modular, more open architectures, it's that natural step and that natural process we had to go through. And then I'm pretty proud to be part of a team that has developed something that I think can change the workflows for graphics for the years to come. Because just like you, Jerry, I mean, I live and breathe graphics, even though it's not my primary work anymore. And I still, when I hear the word deco, I still feel, oh, wait a second, there was something about that product. It was the one character generator that could render characters and glyphs in a quality that I could appreciate.
Yeah.
But I mean, those days are over, and we are onto something different now.
We certainly are.
But I really hope this will take off, and with the momentum we have right now and the interest we have from both broadcasters and vendors, I think we are onto something. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Niels, I think you're bang on. This is taking off. The timing is right. We talk a lot about software interoperability in our chapter, and this is hitting the nail on the head with that. So totally agree, and couldn't thank you enough. Great presentation, Niels, and Jerry. Thanks for your perspective and discussion. And I will go back to just a few finishing slides with a couple of updates on some upcoming meetings. All right, everyone. Just a couple of quick updates, and let you get back to your afternoons. So upcoming meetings, future meetings. We have October 14th. We have a meeting on re-architecting production and distribution systems. Some of the challenges Canadian media companies have faced and are facing, and how they are reacting, what they're implementing in that realm. And then November 12th, really fortunate to have a presentation from Julie Kerr of CBC, the Executive Director of Revenue Strategy and Foresight, on alternative and multi-platform content delivery. So really looking forward to that. Also, I noticed Pierre Hugues on this call. On December 9th, Pierre Hugues is going to provide a presentation on HDR, and we're really looking forward to that as well. So very topical thing. Certainly streaming, multi-platform, and HDR, and re-architecting systems, combined with tonight's presentation on HTML graphics. So a good lineup. And again, I have to go back to this slide. So please, I hope you all can make it. I hope we have a great turnout, just to enjoy each other's company in a relaxed atmosphere on Monday. Enjoy a drink, bite to eat. So Grace O'Malley's, 14 Duncan Street. If you're on our email list, you'll be receiving an email this afternoon, and again on Monday. And if you're not on our email list and would like to, please reach out to me. We're going to grow that list and keep you all updated. As I said before, free drink for anyone who attended this meeting and is there on Monday as well. So be well, stay safe. That's a wrap. We normally say enjoy your evening, but today enjoy your afternoons. Thank you so much.